Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Alexis and today I am finally going over what I read for the month of June. Of course, this is much delayed, so I'm going to try to do this fairly quickly. So with that being said, let's get into the books I read. Now, the first one that I have here is The Scott Beds His Wife by Kerrigan Byrne. This is part of her Victorian Rebels series. I will say that this is, of course, written in third person. It's a historical romance. It includes false identity, secret pregnancy, marriage of convenience, and domestic abuse from previous lovers. This was an okay read for the series. I'll go over the synopsis as well. Since it's been a while, I'm going to just read out my notes from the time I read. So Gavin wanted to obtain land that was next to his family's. Of course, they're Scottish. So he wanted to obtain the land next door, but in order to do so, he needed to convince Allison to give it up. Sam, while running from her partner, disguised herself as Allison and was prepared to fight for her keep, so the land that the property was on. But when the past came back to bite her, Gavin convinced her that he could protect her in name, body, and soul. So, as implied, marriage of convenience. And it was lightly bantered. I wouldn't say it's as captivating as the previous books in the series. Some of my favorite moments include Samantha saving the real Allison during a robbery gone wrong in the beginning of the story. Then Sam as Allison meeting Gavin at the station for the first time. That was really cute. Some shooting practice, which was unconventional for the time period as a lady, but be that as it may, it was very enjoyable. The kiss by the tree, worrying over the attack from the Pinkertons, Gavin warming Sam, so after the, cold, swift marriage, and tub play, that's all I'm going to say, sharing the pregnancy, and I don't really remember too much because, again, it was a few months ago, but at the time I thought it was fairly decent. I would say this is more like a 3.5 stars. Compared to the other books in the series, this is not as well loved as previous books. So I had mixed feelings, as I mentioned. This felt like a hate to love situation. I would have liked the brothers' relationship to be more resolved, to have more reconciliation and, communication around that, because it felt like Gavin was being more hostile with Liam than he deserved, considering their situation. They didn't have a great father, they didn't have anyone protecting them except Liam as the eldest brother amongst them. So Gavin's resentment toward Liam was ill placed. It should have been more directed at the father, and it felt like he was just blaming his brother for things that were out of his control. So, but with that being said, all things aside, I do hope that Callum and Allison, the real Allison, have a story eventually. Right now, it doesn't look like Kerrigan Byrne is doing that in the near future. I will also say that the Rook story is the next book. I am not 100% sure who that is, so of course I'll be talking about it when I get to that book. The next book that I read or listened to as an audiobook was A Scoundrel of Her Own by Stacy Reid. I'm going to plop the image here. It is written in third person, features historical romance, forbidden romance, class differences, and familial lies, so you can kind of get a gist of what I'm hinting at. The synopsis follows Devlin and Ophelia. So they first met as children during a brave rescue from dangerous waters and spent time together for about 9 days before they were finally found and rescued. Their relationship was forbidden due to class differences. Ophelia was born into propriety, whereas Devlin came from a poor background. When a family secret finally comes to light, Ophelia embarks on a journey of finding her truth, and this path eventually reunited her with Devlin as adults. they did not let prejudices keep them apart. So I did enjoy that about this book. I did give this 4 stars. Some of my favorite scenes or moments throughout the book include, of course, the rescue event that they met for. He nicknamed Ophelia Fifi, so that was a cute nickname that he only called her. When Fifi would sing, he was more connected to her, and it was somewhat a promise of forever, if you will. I enjoyed the singing in the rain together, their first kiss, Marianne getting married, a character from a previous book, Devlin building a cottage like the one that they stayed in when they were children. So, all in all, I appreciated that Devlin and Fifi were always honest with each other, and there was never a question of loyalty, so no miscommunication between our leading pair. Like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I listened to the audiobook, or I guess you could say it's more of a novella. It was rather short, maybe an hour and a half to listen to, if not less than that. And that was Free to Love by Kennedy Ryan. It is written in first person and singular perspective. It does feature contemporary romance, fiancés, and Juneteenth. So this did come out sometime in the summer to celebrate Juneteenth. And Kennedy Ryan just wanted something related or alluding to that national holiday. Not too much happens. It was just very light. I appreciate the story. However, it did leave something to be desired, in my opinion. And this was only the beginning of forever for Shauna and Marcus's story. So, like I said, it could have been expanded into a bigger book. Even what was happening, and I have read or listened to other novellas, so definitely more could have been added to the story. So this was just okay for me, 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was A Matter of Temptation by Stacy Reid. This is her newest release, and I did thrift this off Pango Books. I managed to get a little card in it as well, and a bookmark. So that was very cute. With that being said, this story is written in third person, features historical romance as implied by the cover. It does include elopements, grumpy sunshine situation, boss and employee, situation, prejudice, mention of assault in here, mention of deaths of loved one. So those are the triggers for this book. I will say that it follows Mina and Simon. Mina and her twin brother were poor and in dire situations when, in haste and desperation, he challenged Simon, the Earl of Creswick. So, to protect her brother, Mina went in disguise in his stead. Fortunately, she could disguise herself enough to look like a man, but Simon was impressed by the fencing situation and offered her a job on the spot, not caring for any previous scandal she was involved in. He, of course, figured out rather quickly that she was, in fact, a woman dressed as a man and not her brother. Like I said, some of my favorite moments include the fencing, the realization of Mina's true identity, hiring as a secretary, return in the rain and helping family, the carriage attack, which again, it got interesting, and the seaside walk and ice cream. Those are all the things I'm going to hint at for this book. Why did I enjoy it? Well, for one, the playful and witty banter throughout was much appreciated. I enjoyed Mina for her courage and vulnerability. She inspired that in Simon, and his dominant and protective nature was exquisite. The beginning was well paced and eventful. However, in the last quarter, I wish there was more suspense instead of confidence in the matter. In the end, I needed more punch to the point of tears. And when I say that, I mean something that will move me heavily, that I may be on the brink of tears, if not already spilling tears, whether that be for joy or sadness. I just want more out of my conclusions for stories. So, all in all, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I wonder if future books in this series will follow his friends, Daniel, Lord Stancis, the Rake, and the Duke of Beswick, or Mina's brother Anthony, because they were somewhat hinted at in here, and they're the only other supporting characters that would imply they will have future stories. But we'll see, because, like I said, this is the newest release, and there's nothing to go off for future books. The next book that I read was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland of Billionaires series. It is written in dual perspective, following Zara and Rowan. It features contemporary romance, a multicultural romance, a boss and employee situation, grumpy sunshine trope, false identity, verbal abuse, and an age gap. So this followed Rowan, whose grandfather had certain conditions for each of his grandsons to complete and possibly earn their share in the family business of Dreamland. It is very much inspired by Disney World, which I, of course, appreciated. I am definitely a Disney fan. And in the process, Zara ripped into a concept for a current attraction and got promoted to be a creator, which is the equivalent of Disney's Imagineers. They're the people who come up with the concepts and execute them for the amusement park. Through regular run-ins and half-truths, their attraction developed into something more. Some of my favorite moments include the first meeting, Rowan's attraction to Zara, watching Pride and Prejudice together, getting dinner, day in Dreamland together, running into an ex, the New York City surprise trip, and caregiving. Those are some of the things I really enjoyed in here. As I said, Disney will always have a special place in my heart, and perhaps the amusement park would too if my experience had been something like it was in these books. Rowan was difficult and selfish in the beginning until Zara, but her happy energy was infectious, and it started to get a little cliche towards the end. Not a tearjerker, but it was a delightful read. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book, Terms and Conditions, I did enjoy a lot more. This one is, of course, written in first person dual perspective. Contemporary romance, also interracial romance. There's fake marriage in here, marriage of convenience, a boss and employee situation, an age gap of 12 years, mention of learning disorder representation, and parental abuse. After 3 years of working together, Declan married Iris as step one to gain his inheritance position as CEO of Dreamland. Although the attraction was always there, it wasn't until their first kiss that their relationship truly started romantically. Among other things, as favorite moments, they include the wedding kiss, Tequila and Jose. If you read that part, you'll understand what I'm referring to. Seeing a leopard, the fight with the father, words of emotion, or kilig. It did mention some other language words in here. You'll understand if you read the book what I'm alluding to. There's also the botanical gardens date, first time together, being able to say certain things in 10 words or less. The use of Arial over Times New Roman. Again, that is a really specific hint, but when I got there, just my graphic designer student heart was just so appreciative of that little aspect in here. Also, Office Desk, Agreement to Try Seriously, and the ending. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil everything in here. There was a time when he did use his own hurtful words toward her, but I think that just added to the groveling in the end and made it, something that was emotionally, not draining, but emotionally powered for the story. I did give this 5 out of 5 stars. I will also mention that the last book, Final Offer, is scheduled to release in 2023. It would follow Cal. He is the middle child, whereas Declan is the eldest and Rowan is the youngest. Cal was the middle child who didn't always have his situation together, but he did perhaps have the most potential, and that is what we're rooting for in the series. So I'm really excited to see that. But yeah, we do have to wait a little bit. And then I concluded my June with two books by Kennedy Ryan, and that would be When You Are Mine and Loving You Always. This is part of the Bennett series. However, the first two books do follow the same couple. So I'm just going to talk about the first one and very loosely about the second one. Both of these are written in third person, unlike the books that she publishes more recently that tend to be written in first person. Her Bennett series is completely written in third person, and I've only read the first two out of four. This is a contemporary romance, best friends girl situation, some cheatings mentioned, death of loved ones, prejudice, and child abuse. So Walsh saw Karis for the first time helping a stranger and knew he was drawn to her. Shortly after, he realized that she was already taken by his best friend Cam, and he intended to marry her. So the situation remained complicated and only got worse over time in this book, but it is resolved in the second book for the most part with their relationship. Some of my favorite moments include their first kiss, Karis confiding in Walsh about TJ, Walsh giving in to Sophia's persistence, 1 year after wedding, so time jump, Walsh visiting in kitchen and learning about the gift from Kenya not being delivered, return from home, Cam's, I guess, claim of attraction is how I'll put it. Kristen telling Karis that she thinks she'll be the one to amend Cam and Walsh's relationship because, of course, the best friends do become estranged for a period of time. I also enjoyed the final promise between Martin and Christine. Christine is Walsh's mother. There is a situation in here that prevents her from carrying on with the rest of the characters. Walsh traveling with his father and being able to bond over their recent loss. I did enjoy the beginning situation with Karis and Walsh, but of course it's not resolved in here because it is a duet. So Loving You Always picks up right where the previous book left off. This features best friend's wife longing, there's a car accident and a loss that I can't explain further because, again, it will spoil the situation of the book. I enjoyed finding Mama Jess again for, a period of time. I also enjoyed the fact that Walsh returned to Karis following the accident, the fight with Cam, Martin realizing that Christine kept her ring, their first date, Met Gala, and other things within the story I really enjoyed. However, it is not something that I see myself returning to. And because of how it was constructed for their timeline, I didn't particularly enjoy the roller coaster. Like sometimes I do, but in this case, it wasn't as enjoyable compared to her other books. It was still a decent read. I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely enjoy her other books more. And those are all the books that I read for the month of June. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any thoughts or opinions on this. I will say that I'll try to put out my July and August wrap-ups soon, and since September is almost over, that one will follow shortly after. Until next time, my name's Alexis, and take care. Happy reading.